Before sunrise today, emergency sirens echoed across the northern Philippines as authorities issued new evacuation orders for coastal communities already devastated by Tuesday's massive magnitude 7.8 earthquake. 3 days have passed since the first disaster triggered tsunami warnings and sent thousands fleeing to higher ground. But the crisis is nowhere near stabilizing. Seismic monitoring stations across Luzon are detecting patterns that suggest the region may be entering the most dangerous phase yet. What scientists are seeing beneath the ocean floor has forced officials to reconsider everything they thought they knew about this unfolding catastrophe. Fresh evacuation alerts have now displaced over 85,000 additional residents, especially across Luzon's eastern provinces. Volcanic issued the expanded directive after detecting what officials describe as unprecedented seismic stress building along a major segment of the Philippines sea plate boundary. According to internal reports, the readings show pressure levels never previously documented in this part of the trench. Since Tuesday's initial 7.8 magnitude earthquake, more than 2,400 aftershocks have been recorded. At least 47 were strong enough to exceed magnitude 5.0, quakes that would normally be considered major events on their own. But it isn't the number of aftershocks causing the most concern. It's the pattern, the depth, the spacing, and the accelerating rate of stress accumulation that hints at something far worse. Seismic stress measurements along a 280-kilometre fault segment now indicate levels 40% higher than baseline conditions recorded before the main quake. In seismology, a spike that large, especially this quickly, often signals that the fault did not fully discharge its built-up energy. And that possibility has triggered fear of a much larger rupture. Volcanic's chief seismologist, Dr. Maria Santos, addressed the nation during an early morning emergency briefing and did not mince words. "The fault has not finished releasing its energy," she said. "The December 9th earthquake may not have been the main shock. We could be witnessing a 4-shock sequence." According to her team's models, the fault line could produce a significantly larger earthquake in the coming days, or even hours, depending on how stress continues redistributing beneath the ocean floor. Satellite-based deformation sensors have revealed something equally alarming. A 150-kilometre section of the seafloor east of Isabela province has shifted nearly 2 metres, creating what geologists call a stress shadow, a zone where energy is forced sideways into intact, highly pressurized rock layers. Historically, this is the same pattern observed before several catastrophic multi-segment ruptures in Japan, Chile, and Indonesia. In these cases, the smaller major quake was ultimately recorded as the precursor, not the true rupture. The newly expanded evacuation zone now extends 15 kilometres inland, swallowing entire municipalities that were not included in Tuesday's initial order. Communities such as Palanan, Divilacan and Maconacon are emptying out for the second time in less than a week. Families pack whatever belongings they can carry into bags and plastic crates. Children clutch stuffed toys as they wait for transport that never seems to arrive soon enough.
Right now, this is what it looks like in the Philippines. The official term there is state of calamity. An earthquake 6 weeks ago, then a week ago, a typhoon. You can see the widespread damage left behind from those two tragedies.
Elderly residents walk with the help of neighbours, navigating cracked roads and landslide-threatened paths toward inland shelters. Local government units report that evacuation centres designed to shelter 3,000 people are currently holding more than 12,000, forcing emergency authorities to open additional sites up to 100 kilometres away. School gymnasiums, basketball courts, churches and barangay halls are packed wall to wall with families sleeping on thin mats or cardboard sheets. Food and water distribution teams are struggling to keep up. Some areas have received only half their expected allocation due to washed-out roads or damaged bridges. In towns closer to the epicentre, supply trucks can only enter through 1 or 2 remaining intact routes, both of which are now heavily congested. Infrastructure damage from Tuesday's quake has made everything harder. The Cagayan Valley Airport remains closed after a 300-metre crack opened across its runway. Engineers fear the soil beneath may have liquefied during the shaking, compromising the ground's stability. 3 major bridges connecting coastal towns to inland communities show varying levels of structural deformation. Officials have restricted them to emergency use vehicles only, forcing thousands of evacuees to walk long distances on foot. Power restoration teams say underground transmission cables suffered deeper damage than initially assessed. Temporary fixes that were meant to restore electricity to major towns have now failed twice, leaving entire districts in darkness for the 3rd night in a row. Communication networks are also failing. Many coastal towers lost backup power after fuel deliveries were disrupted. Residents with dead phones gather around portable charging stations powered by generators when fuel is available. Radio has become the primary way to reach residents who have no access to cellular service. Local stations operate 24/7, broadcasting evacuation orders, weather warnings, and occasional messages from displaced family members hoping to reconnect with loved ones. Hospitals within the expanded evacuation radius face one of the most complex challenges. Engineers discovered foundational shifts in multiple facilities, prompting immediate evacuation of patients. Kawayan General alone transferred 180 patients, some requiring ventilators and continuous monitoring, to hospitals in Manila and 2 Guegarao. Medical teams are overwhelmed. Mobile clinics and temporary treatment tents now fill parking lots and school fields, illuminated by floodlights powered by generators that run dangerously low on fuel. The region's fishing economy, a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of families, has suffered catastrophic disruption. Several port facilities from Apari to Casiguran show evidence of seafloor uplift and subsidence, with some harbour channels now too shallow for boats. Fishing vessels that survived the tsunami, sight-trapped in ports that may take months to dredge farmland, has also taken a beating. Rice fields in the Cagayan River Delta are showing signs of saltwater intrusion, threatening crops just weeks before harvest. Livestock from coastal farms are being moved inland, overwhelming temporary holding areas and increasing the risk of animal disease outbreaks. The next threat? Weather. Monsoon rains are forecast to hit Luzon over the weekend. Meteorologists warn that saturated soil combined with ongoing aftershocks creates ideal conditions for landslides, flash floods, and slope collapses. Some of the newly formed cracks and scarps in mountainous areas are large enough to swallow vehicles. Deep ocean monitoring arrays positioned along the Philippine Trench are sending back data that defies standard seismic models. Pressure waves are travelling through bedrock 15% faster than normal, indicating structural changes deep within the fault zone. When rocks undergo that kind of velocity shift, it means fracture networks may be expanding and linking together, a dangerous precursor to cascading fault failures. Far offshore, tsunami detection buoys have recorded subtle but persistent pressure fluctuations. These micro-variations likely indicate continued seafloor movement, the kind that precedes major vertical displacement events. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has raised its watch level and assigned personnel to continuous monitoring. Marine geologists analyzing sonar data report discovering new underwater ridges and scarps that were not present before the quake. The ocean floor is literally remapping itself. Dr. James Mitchell from the University of Hawaii called the situation a house of cards built on shifting sand, noting that further destabilization could be catastrophic. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council is now operating under extended crisis protocols. International aid assistance has begun arriving. Medical supplies from Thailand and Singapore, rescue teams from Japan and Australia, and portable water purification systems from multiple NGOs. Inside evacuation centres, the emotional toll is undeniable. Children who witnessed Tuesday's tsunami waves are showing signs of trauma. Many wake up crying during the night when aftershocks rumble through the shelters. Elderly evacuees exhibit stress-related medical conditions like blood pressure spikes and heart irregularities. Religious leaders have become anchors of stability. Pastors, priests, imams, and local elders lead prayers, distribute food, and help maintain order in overcrowded shelters. Satellite imagery revealing shifted coastlines, in some areas by as much as 50 metres, shows the true scale of geological transformation. New offshore landforms have appeared. Others have slipped beneath the waves. Shipping lanes that existed last week are now unusable. International seismologists are converging on the Philippines to record the event in real time, calling it a once-in-a-generation opportunity to study a potential multi-segment megathrust sequence. Research vessels are racing to deploy additional ocean floor sensors before any larger rupture occurs. Communication systems are strained as families search for missing relatives. Social media groups have turned into massive digital bulletin boards with photos, names, and last known locations. As night approaches again, one fact remains painfully clear. The Philippine seaplate boundary has not finished its violent realignment. 85,000 people displaced. 2,400 aftershocks recorded. Stress levels 40% above normal. Critical infrastructure compromised. Seafloor still shifting. What began as a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake has evolved into a far more dangerous, unstable situation. Scientists warn that the initial quake may have been only the beginning, a prelude to a much larger event. For the families lying awake on gymnasium floors, the responders working without rest, and the scientists monitoring every tremor, the next hours may determine everything. The fault's next movement will decide the fate of thousands.